Hey everybody, Captain Murphy here. Today we're taking a look at the Frigate Unicorn. This is a ship that we originally had kind of a deal with the Frigate Unicorn Museum to just build them a 3D model that they can use to show representations of what the Unicorn would look like had it been fully rigged. The Unicorn is actually a real ship, and the museum that is actually housed in it is in what's called in ordinary, meaning that when they built the Unicorn, they would put a deck over top of the ship, and they would use them as anything from storage to sleeping and any number of uses. And they would do that as a just in case they needed to bring the ship out of the in ordinary status, they could rig it and send it out to sea, and they had these hulls, which were the more complex thing to build. They could rig them in a matter of days, but it was the hulls that took years to put together because there was so much wood and that was needed. So the Frigate Unicorn is a real ship, and they wanted us to build a 3D model of it to allow them to kind of show it off and show what it would look like had it been rigged. So the Unicorn is a Leda class frigate. It's a sister ship of the HMS Trincomalee, and which is another one of the ships that's still around today. And they're both Leda class. The Trincomalee was an earlier version. The Unicorn is a later one. And most notably, their stern galleries are completely different. The Unicorn went with the more sturdy version that didn't have the fancy gallery across the back, whereas the Trincomalee was more of a throwback to the late 1700s, where they had the fancy galleries around the backs of them. So that's why it looks just kind of different. This is much more robust, and it's also less likely to take damage should another ship rake your stern. You don't have that giant opening on the back that allows the cannonballs to travel the entire length of the ship internally. So we had to deal with them originally just to build the 3D model, and as the model got more and more complicated and more detailed, really, we decided that we wanted to make it kind of an interactive item to allow you to play around on it and take a look at it. So this is what we've come up with. This is a kind of a simple game. We really haven't kind of promoted it. We put it up and we allow people to give like a donation, and we're not going to make any money on this in its current state. Anything we really take in, we were just talking about, we'll go ahead and just give it to the Unicorn Museum, because they've got this real ship to have to maintain, so we don't want to have to you don't want to take any money away from them. Now, this is the last version of this build. This one here only has 2 decks. It has the main deck and it has a gun deck. Other than that, there's nothing else to it. It's just those 2. And the next version that is coming out is going to be much more detailed. It's got not only the decks, but it also has all of the decorations that go on the deck. We've got some of the running rigging in addition to just a standing rigging. We've got some running, but not a lot. Mostly what we've got right here is all standing rigging. And so we've got some running rigging getting added on, and we've got some furled sails and some other decorations. We're going to have the 2 launches up in the center of the deck, and just essentially a lot more details that go into it. The other thing we've got are 2 additional decks. So under the main deck, there's going to be you've got essentially the living quarters deck, which is along there, and then under that you've got your orlop. So we've got 2 more decks that are going to be added on. And so the next version, it'll be out in about a month or so, and it's going to be much higher detail. And we've also got new textures. These are kind of temporary until we got a chance to really make some new ones and bake out some nice new textures. But they're good for what they are now. They do represent what they are. That you can tell that is iron on wood and that's brass, and so I mean they do their job as they are. So anyway, it's kind of a simple model. It has some neat little features, like you can play around, you can change the time of day, so that way you can get some different lighting. You can actually change the weather type. You can add, you can just hit this little button, it'll just pick a random weather type and just change the weather a little bit. We don't change the sea state. That's pretty much static. We don't want to really mess with that. But you can actually go all the way through day and night cycles. You can see what the ship looks like at night. You can see what it looks like under decks with just the lanterns. So we're going to go ahead and just fly down here, and we're going to take a look at the underdecks. You'll notice that it kind of snapped to the different reflection probe. That's something that eventually we might fix, but for now that it works for what it does. So we've got the underdecks here. We've actually got it lit using as much real-time lighting as possible. So all of these lanterns are actually lighting with a real-time, in addition to the lighting of the ambient coming through the windows and any reflections and all that. So if you change your time of day, you'll notice that it kind of changes the color that bounces through. And then when you go into nighttime, you've got just the lanterns lighting things up. So it's very nice. I mean, it's been quite a bit of work getting it to work like this, but definitely looks very, very good. So anyway, this is just, like I say, this is a kind of a simple fly through. There's not a lot to do in it. The only real interactive thing that you can do is, besides like taking screenshots and stuff like that, you can actually fire the starboard guns, and that's what this little guy over here is doing. Is he's our gun captain. So, well, he's really just a model we grabbed from Mixamo and put him in place to show the scale of what these guns look like, because without any kind of characters or other kind of frame of reference, you really don't know how big everything is on this ship. So this kind of gives us an idea that this guy is right around 6 feet tall, like that's like 1.8 meters, 1.9 meters, something like that. So he's, that like average height today. And so that gives us a frame of reference to realize that, at this height, this gun is pretty big. I mean, that's a big chunk of metal right there. So you can fire these guns. We've got a keybind for it. And it just does a simple rolling broadside, nothing fancy. The fact that it kind of like hung up there for a second is because I'm doing like 3 uploads and trying to do some Git repo connections and stuff like that in the background. So I think it's hanging things up a little bit. But yeah, this when the later versions are put out, we're going to add a lot more interactivity. We're going to add in some like museum displays, things like that. And we hope to actually get it to a point that it's really worth something, that it actually is a, something that people would, pay money for and would actually, get to use as a VR experience, which I didn't mention before. This is actually VR capable. Now, I say capable, it's not great. I haven't spent a whole lot of time getting the VR experience exactly right, but it does connect to like Xbox controller. It picks up on those and allows you to kind of like fly around. If you want to, you can actually go into your menu and you can set up custom controls. So you can go through and you can assign whatever you want for your controller, and that way you can set up your own whatever controller you've got. You can play around with that and use that for your motion and everything. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more information, we've got on our itch.io. I'm going to put a link in the description. And I've also got a web page for it on our main page, and I'll link that in the description as well. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks.